I'm hungry.
Traveling from the stinky bogs of Duloc to the pristine towers of Ever After is everyone's family favorite ogre Shrek. And wadded up, half melted in his mud-covered pocket, is a bar of Shrek onion-flavored chocolate, brought to you by DreamWorks Pictures and ASTOR Chocolates. There are many layers to this decadent delight. Fresh milk chocolate is mixed and tainted, or is that improved, with honest to Farquaad onion powder, an ogre's all-time favorite. Just like Smash Mouth, this bar will make you a believer!
So, let me just begin by saying this. I have some Shrek impressions. Let's just get them out of the way right away.
Come here, donkey!
Shrek, what's the matter with you?
I am Shrek, the fun-loving ogre!
You got the lip pop down, but you're not very fun.
Whatever do you mean, donkey?
You went on your whole character journey in the first movie, Shrek. Now look at you. You lost your identity. There's nothing to you no more. You're just bored as shit.
But all I want to do is hug and kiss you!
I liked you better when you wanted to eat me. At least you had a reason to exist.
But I love you, donkey. I made you this ticket for a free foot massage.
I ain't even got feet, Shrek.
You know it's the mark of a poor comedian when you have to explain your joke. But I have nothing else to say in this episode. Perhaps some of you out there have seen in older videos that I have a pretty big movie collection. It starts at the floor and it just piles up over your head, it just looms over you. I even have more DVDs and Blu-rays in storage that aren't on display. So you would think I'd be a pretty big movie buff, right? I freaking hate movies. Say what you want about the movies of today. To me, I prefer not to indulge in them because they all seem very preachy. They all seem educational, like they all want to teach you something about how to be a decent human being. When I'm watching a movie, I don't want to be taught anything. I just want my brain to rot for like an hour and a half. No, you put all that on the side. This goes well beyond that. You see this smiling ogre face right here? Here to meet my ogre face. What did the first Shrek movie teach us? Well, we had this fearsome character, an ogre, which is normally looked at with fear and contempt and maybe a little disgust because they're big, smelly, and they kill people. And in many other movies, I mean, no other movie that I know of focuses on an ogre. They're usually just like one of many in giant armies with clubs just like throwing people all over the place in the middle of giant battles. They're seen as very expendable. This movie took one of those creatures and show that he has a perfectly worthwhile life, and he had a big heart, he had a huge conscience, he was actually a decent human being. It was kind of a good gimmick for a movie. By the end of Shrek 1, he overcame that stereotypical image. He showed the audience, yes, that he had a heart, and he got himself the girl, and they got rid of the bad guy who, in normal instances, might have been the good guy, but here, you're seeing things from a different point of view. So, the end, roll credits. There's nothing left to say. If you do a part 2, then where does the character go from there? He's just gonna be twiddling his thumbs the whole time and trying to figure out new things to do. You're already starting with a neutered character that on paper makes absolutely no sense. Do you remember Steve Urkel from Family Matters? Of course, we all remember Steve Urkel from Family Matters, but how well do you really remember Steve Urkel? I mean, we all have that view of him, like, the way that he was, like, 5 or 6 seasons in, but do you remember what he was like when he first showed up? He was not this larger-than-life, real-life cartoon character jump from the page onto the screen, no! He was just a normal, everyday, stereotypical nerd character. He didn't go, do I do that, in some fake voice. No, he was using his real voice. And the Winslows, he wasn't like their adopted child. He was just some nerd who was in love with Laura Winslow, and he would stop by and he'd make their lives hell in all these ways. He'd come in and he'd like break things and he'd just be generally very annoying. And then what happened? The audience seemed to kind of like this side character. He ended up taking over the show, and before you know it, he wasn't even a freaking nerd anymore. I mean, yeah, he still dressed the part, he acted like a sniffly, like with his nose running and all that, and his pants hitched up high, but he like rode motorcycles and he shot basketball. He was friends with like Scottie Pippen and all these celebrities. Could you imagine if he had started out the series that way? Steve Urkel would have never been popular. As a matter of fact, when I made the show, The Magic in the Town of Chen, with my friend Steve back when I was in my teens, that's what we were lampooning. We were saying the character of Randolph D. Bortzfield was basically Steve Urkel from season 5 or 6. A character that made absolutely no sense. This nerd, this repulsive-looking human being that for some reason was very popular and into heavy metal. And the same thing happened with Shrek. I challenge you, the viewers watching at home. You take that first movie, you throw it out of the equation, because that's no longer his character. His character is this new character that they came up with, because he's going on for 3 movies, 4 movies, 5 movies, spin-off movies. You take that character and you sum him up in a sentence for me right now. I'm waiting. You're not saying anything because there's nothing to say. The character has had his balls cut off. And I'm not saying that it's not fun to sometimes follow around the everyman, but you started with a pretty fun gimmick. He's not the gimmick anymore. I wasn't in the writing room when they came up with Shrek, but I pretty much know what happened. I have eyes, I have ears. I mean, you look at that first Shrek movie, it was a very smartly written movie. You had a character that went on a journey from the beginning of the movie to the end. From part 1 to part epilogue, he was a completely different character by the end. On top of that, it's a parody of established tropes in cinema. You don't make sequels to tropes. This was a standalone movie they never meant to make sequels to, and what happened? It made lots of money, was very, very popular. They almost had to make sequels as a rule. I will dare say that many movies nowadays do this. I used to say most, but I'll say many now because many movies nowadays are made by committee, and when they make that first movie, they have it in their brains they're gonna branch off and make a giant multiverse out of it. And what happens more than anything? I mean, by the time that first one comes out, nobody sees it, and then all their plans for sequels go out the window, and then what are you left with? You're left with this one movie that just stands alone, sad, pathetic, with no ending. And there are countless movie series that do this. But for me, I have it whittled down to 4 prime offenders. We have Shrek, Despicable Me, Finding Nemo, and Frozen. We already talked about Shrek. What about Despicable Me? Despicable Me is the same exact movie as Shrek, just with a few different names and some things rearranged. And I chose the other 2 because they are the 2 perfect examples of how this can all go tits up. We start with Frozen. Frozen, it told its entire story in that first movie, and then when it came to Frozen 2, they were just twiddling their thumbs, struggling to find things to do. And then we have Finding Nemo. They did everything that they were ever gonna do in that first movie, so in Finding Dory, they just did it all again! The moral of the story is this: not every movie needs to be a series. Every time I see Shrek, I want to give him a freaking wedgie to the point where his nuts are being strangled by his own underwear. But it wouldn't work because he has no nuts, because he's neutered! There are some folks out there, some sick folks, who would actually be curious about an item such as this. They would actually be hopeful that it might actually taste good, because it's sweet and it's salty, all mixed up into one. Just like a chocolate-covered pretzel. People love those things. This is the same basic concept. Kinda, sorta, but not really. To me, the very idea of eating onion milk chocolate is like going to a pizzeria and getting a big Sicilian slice and a big pile of garlic knots, and then on the side having a little side dish of Hershey's Kisses. How well would that go together? I guess they're kind of doing that at movies these days with their chocolate-covered pretzels. It just goes to show, since day 1 of this damn series, people will eat anything at this point because we're struggling to find new tastes! Or maybe it's just a fun gimmick. Maybe this is something that a friend could show to another friend and just say, hey, isn't that such a gross idea? And people like to gross themselves out all the time. I don't know why. We must be really desperate for fun, right? I'm curious to know what this is gonna smell like. I mean, I can almost see like the little bits of onion like in the back of the chocolate, but let me take a whiff. This just smells like chocolate. Kind of smells like dark chocolate, but it clearly says that it's milk. Yeah, it's milk. I do kind of sort of like Smash Mouth, but I'm sorry, Shrek. If I take a bite of this and it's dark chocolate, I'm gonna have to penalize you for that. And I'm forgetting about the onions. I would describe the taste to you, but you know what? You could probably put the taste together in your head. It tastes like really good milk chocolate with a hint of onion. Really, really light hint of onion that hits you when you first bite it. Goes away pretty quickly. It leaves kind of an oniony taste in your mouth after you eat it. As a matter of fact, the more you eat it, the less you taste the onion. And I know that this show always devolves into a conversation about texture, but it's the biggest anomaly. I have big problems with the texture. I also kind of like it at the same time. It's got like a nice little ridgy design, if you'll see. Helps the flavors dump out a little bit. But at the same time, it's a Shrek candy bar. Why couldn't there be like a picture of Donkey on this, or like a picture of Fiona, Lord Farquaad, the little gingerbread man? You can make a mold, you can put chocolate into a mold and make it a little bit more fun. As it is, it's just a bland, weak sauce candy bar, kind of like Shrek himself.
Help me, boys and girls. Shrek is smothering me. Life with him is nothing but misery. Every day is Valentine's Day and I'm sick of it. Whatever happened to grinding bones to make bread? That's what we ogres are supposed to do. I have divorce papers drawn up and we are supposed to be on the Maury Povich show. When? Oh when? Did my husband turn into such a pussy?
And you know when you've eaten a lot of onion or a lot of garlic? Like after a while you start to feel like that little burny feeling in the back of your throat. This chocolate is giving me that same exact feeling. I mean, I can live with it, but it's a really strange sensation to have after you've just eaten chocolate. So yeah, this kind of gets my endorsement. It's got a nice crisp to it, but at the same time, it's nothing really to shout home about. So if I were to give this a star rating, I'll give it 3 stars. 3 stars is fair. If you're a fan of chocolate, then you might like this. I mean, it's ASTOR brand chocolate, and I know this brand to be one of the best brands as far as like the richness and the milkiness of it. But most people aren't going to be buying this for the chocolate. They're going to be buying this out of curiosity and just for the sheer gross out factor. And for that, I'd say it's pretty bland. There's really nothing doing here. And if you eat this, I hope you're a big fan of reflux, because this is going to repeat and repeat and repeat on you. Like I said, you don't really notice the onion taste so much as you're eating it. It kind of disappears after a while, but it's there. And it's burrowing deep into your stomach, and it's mixing up with your gastric juices, and when the chemistry is happening, the steam is rising, it goes back up your esophagus in gaseous form, and it comes out your mouth like a disgusting onion chimney. It's like Willy Wonka had a bunch of pizza and they just threw it into the fireplace. So this is your good buddy DJ Clive saying until next time, I'll see you in Limbo. And you know, I saw that there's a new Puss in Boots movie coming out. Or probably long been out by the time that this airs. Let's just hope that they've got it out of their system and that this is it. That it's not going to go any further from there. We don't want to be making phone calls to Mike Myers and Eddie Murphy and Cameron Diaz to be in another Shrek movie. Just let them stay comfortably under the rock that they're hiding under. There's nothing worse than a series that just goes on way, way too long. Happy 295th episode, folks. See ya!